Stephen came up to the table, and Stephen is saying that salvation, or rather repentance, is for everybody according to the Bible. I'm saying that's not true.
We come out of the Israelites, black, Hispanic, Native Indian. Also, the white man comes out of Shem. Yes, they're Israelites.
How about Chinese and Japanese people?
Chinese come out of Shem. Also, the Arabs, and so does the white man. But the Chinese man came from black people. You understand? Out of Lot's son. Lot's daughter, when they slept with him, they became the Mongoloid children of incest. It's where the Orientals come from. Okay? The white man comes from two black people, Isaac and Rebecca. See, what happens is, in this school system here in America, it's all lies. They're not going to teach you the truth. You understand?
Where can we learn more?
Come to our school. We'll teach it all to you. Let me get you some flyers. First of all, what's your nationality?
Huh? Somalian.
You can't come to our school.
Why not?
Because you're not an Israelite.
What's the Somalian? That's kind of
Somalians,
unfair, man.
we were known as the children of Ham. You come from Hamitic descent. We come from Semitic descent, from Jacob and out of Israel. That's who we really are. We are the real Israelites.
Listen. You're an Edomite, so you can't get it. So I'm not even talking to you because salvation is not for you. Salvation is not for you. Go ahead.
Come on, bro.
Hebrews 1:1.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's funny at the same time. You see, these guys label people an Israelite based on which country or nation they're from. Or as some of them have said to me in person, not in these clips, but have said to me, they test the spirit to see if that person is an Israelite, based on if they agree with their doctrines. That's how they determine who's an Israelite, their country, and if they agree with their doctrine. Because that's what we're commanded to do, right? In the New Testament? No. Let's go to the Torah and see if Gentiles were able to become a part of Israel and partake of the Passover and other laws in the Torah. Since these guys say Gentiles are not, salvation is not for them. In Leviticus 19:33 to 34, it says, "And if a stranger dwells with you in your land, you shall not mistreat him. The stranger who dwells among you shall be to you as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God." It's very clear that there should be no partiality, and Israel was to love a foreigner living in their land as themselves. And then again in the Torah, in Exodus, we read, "And when a stranger dwells with you and wants to keep the Passover to the Lord, a stranger, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it, and he shall be as a native of the land. For no uncircumcised person shall eat it. One law shall be for the native born and for the stranger who dwells among you." So Gentiles were allowed to keep the Passover to the Lord and be circumcised. The stranger, or the non-Israelite, that has chosen to unite and partake with the people of Israel is now allowed and obligated to partake in the Passover sacrifice.
I want to give all the praises and the honor to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Recha HaKodash, and double honors to the elder apostles and elder bishops of Great Millstone. Honors as well to you, brethren, you fellow followers and believers of this faith, and shalom to the elect. Shalom to the hopefully elect. Shalom. So anyway, I want to go in this video here with this individual here. The surprise look on his face when he saw this fellow Israelite from ISRAELITES turn away a man because he was from another country. Now, this man that's, hosting this particular video, he can't see the spirituality of it at all, so he's way in left field. But the shock he had is the same shock that we have, right? But his is different, because we're saying it ain't because you're bordered, just because you're in one particular location, you're an Israelite, but if you're in another location, you're not an Israelite. And that's novice, that's being a novice Israelite. Now, this man here doesn't even think like that. He says it doesn't matter where you're from, what culture, what your nationality, then it doesn't matter. So we would have at Great Millstone, we would have probably more of a logical debate, so to speak, than these other groups. I mean, I've seen Sakari in there. So this guy also said that some of them say we read the spirit if you agree. That's not necessarily true. We've evolved from that. Because there's some people who don't agree with our doctrine, and we'll still label them as Israelites, and they might look almost like a white person. And we'll say, that's just a stubborn Israelite. Right? At the end of the day, you're a heathen if you don't believe. And you're going to get destroyed. But you will come back, Romans 11:26, if you're an Israelite. Now, anyway, I want to go into this thing with the stranger. It's, we go into it time to time. Right? So we're going to go to Leviticus. Let's go to Leviticus 20, 34? 1934. But the stranger, he pulled this. The stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself, for thy were strangers, right, in the land of Egypt. Okay? This is clearly talking about an Israelite. That's why he said that. But the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you. Why? Because us as Israelites, the stubborn jakes that we are today, or we were, or as growing, we didn't want to accept. This is what Paul was going through, Apostle Paul. You had Israelites saying, no, they're Greeks. They can't be accepted. But Paul had to say, ye were once Gentiles, right? Or you are heirs to the covenant, strangers even. You were Gentiles. That's all it's saying. So it says, but the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be as one born among you. Why is he saying that? Because you had inhabitants of the land and Israelites that wasn't in the land. Just like Caleb's father, Jephunneh, I believe, the Kenizzite. Although his lineage was of an Israelite, he was considering to be a Kenizzite. Right? We see this even with other nations going into other lands and naming themselves after other lands or nations. Right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that. You have a multitude and mixture of Israelites who are mixed amongst other nations. We'll get into that too. And it says, and thou shalt love him as thyself, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. This is all it's saying. I am the Lord your God. Who were strangers in the land of Egypt? Israelites. You had Israelites who was practicing Egyptian philosophy, Egyptian beliefs, and converted over to Egyptian mythology and doctrine. Even Moses was in Egypt. Right? This is clear. Let's go to Luke 25. Let me see here. Looks like 25 and looks like 34. I think it's 25 and 35. And it says, and if thy brother be waxen poor and fallen into decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him, yea, though he be a stranger. Well, wait a minute. It says, if thy brother be waxen poor and fallen in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him, yea, though he be a stranger. You know, we got Israelites all over, right? And then if you carry on that arrogancy, right, because the main camp, what we say, is up in New York. Imagine if they carry like that and say, okay, we coming from Baltimore, D.C., and then we come up there and they treat us like trash, right? They're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to love us the same. And this is what was being said. Okay, anyway, it says, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee. Take thou no usury of him, because who was the law given to? You're in the book of Leviticus. So why would he give the Israelites the Passover, but then everybody else can lay part of it? That doesn't even make sense. Then it's not even a Passover for the Israelites at this point. Anyway, let me go here. Let's go to, it's so many books on this. Let's go to Leviticus. Let me go to stranger in Leviticus 19:34. And we're going to get a couple scriptures out of it and see what that means. Leviticus 19:34. Stranger, sojourner, temporary inhabitant, a newcomer, lacking inheriting rights of foreigners in Israel, though conceded rights. So all you got to do is scroll down, look at the precepts. We see Exodus 12 and 19. It says, 7 days shalt thou be with no leaven found in your houses, for whosoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land. Okay? Let's get another one. Let's get Exodus, looks like 12. I have a lot open, Salakia. Let's go to Exodus. Let me go on down to part of the definition. It says a sojourner. This is what sojourner says in the Hebrew Chaldee lexicon. It says a sojourner is a stranger, a foreigner, a person living out of his own country. Right? So these are Israelites living out of their own country. That's what it means. So who else would be the stranger? The stranger, the foreigner that would sojourn with thee. A person living out of their country. Now, of course, this word stranger can mean an actual heathen nation altogether. Gentiles can mean an actual heathen nation altogether. Right? So it's words that spell the same but different in meaning. Exodus 12:48. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, this is what we just saw, a sojourner, a person living out of his country, and will keep the Passover to the Lord. Now you might say they are actually heathens that's living out of their country. But why can't Israelites be living out of their country, right? That will keep the Passover to the Lord. Let all his males be circumcised, then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. So let's go on here. I just want to get to the point now. This is Exodus 2 and 22. Let's go to Exodus 2 and 20. Let me see what it says. And he said unto his daughters, right? And where is he? Why is it that ye have left the man? Call him that ye may eat the bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man. And he began, talking about the Midianite, and he gave Moses Zipporah his daughter, and she bare him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. Now, there's a reason why I read all of that. I have been a stranger in a strange land. This is where we go back to Leviticus 19 and 34. Right? It says, Leviticus 19:34, but the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord. You know? Moses is a great example. Okay? And Gershom actually means stranger. So you got to understand what it's talking about. Acts 2 and 5. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. Now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own tongue. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are not all these which speak Galatians? See, this is the same argument that this is why I want to go here, because this man has said the Israelites is being racist, let me say that, or being picky and choosing because certain people live outside the land or outside of in certain countries that they are not Israelites. But yet these same Christians will say that everybody that's a stranger or everybody that lives outside of Israel was considered a non-Israelite. It's the same thing, but they're doing the same exact thing. Now Daniel 12 and 2 says, none of the wicked shall understand. Goes on to say, and how we hear every man in his own tongue, where we were born, Parthians, and this is what it's saying. We were born, what? Parthians and Medes and Elamites and dwellers in Mesopotamia and in Judea and Cappadocia and Pontus and Asia. And the list goes on. That's why it's Paphlia or Pamphylia, and in Egypt. This goes back to Luke 19 and 34. That's why I wanted to go there. So let's also go to Isaiah 11 and 11. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which were left from Assyria and from Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. This is where both of these guys have got it wrong. Israelites are going to be in all different nations. And yes, it will be only Israelites that will be getting delivered. That's why all these people have these debates. It goes nowhere. You don't really see them come up and try to debate us on high levels. They'll come up to try to gain knowledge of history and what we know, but there's really no argument, because we're not teaching what Christians teach. We're not teaching what other Israelites teach. It's really easy. So no, it's not. It is about the Spirit, but just because they agree don't mean that's what it's all about, because there's people who don't agree that still can be Israelites. But if you agree, obviously, because none of the wicked shall understand. This is Daniel 12 and 2. Many shall do wickedly, but none of the wicked shall understand. So we believe if you're wicked, you're not going to understand anyway. If you're righteous, you're going to understand no matter what you look like, who you look like. Because St. John 6 and 63 said it is the Spirit, and the flesh profiteth nothing. Anyway, that's all I have on that. Shalom.